Hello everyone, my name is Alan, and I'm happy to present my project Mindfulness and Memory today that I have been working with Dr. Tiffany Ho for the last year. So I want to start today's presentation by showing you the statistic on college student depression rate in 2025. So as you can see on screen that there is as high as 37% of student that is experiencing any form of depression in the last year. And it is certainly a high number that is demanding some of our attention. So as some of you might know that traditional treatment for depression is including psychotherapy that you would go and talk to a clinical psychologist and drug therapy that is including medication that you will go to a psychiatrist and get your prescribed medication as needed. But in recent years, there is a concept called mindfulness that has drawn people attention as an adjunct to these traditional treatment for depression. Mindfulness, by definition, is by paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. And we not only want people to notice their bodily sensation and internal state, but more importantly, we want to know how they link to their thoughts and emotions. And there are a lot of ways that you can practice these mindfulness. For example, you can do meditation, you can do yoga, or even through mindful walking, such as hiking. And therefore, to evaluate effectiveness of these mindfulness practice in the context of depression, that we have the following hypothesis in the current study. The first one is, of course, we want to see if there will be any improvement in your mindfulness level after the practice. Second, we want to see if these mindfulness practice can indeed lower your negative cognitive bias, which is about how you process negative information and which is one very important indicator for depression. And in the current study, we want to see if they will have a lower negative cognitive bias in our cognitive test, which I will talk about that in a minute. And that guides us to the conceptual model of the current study, which the center will be mindfulness practice, and we want to see its effect. And therefore, in the current study, we designed this classic randomized controlled trial study. We recruit 63 participants and were randomly assigned to either the mindfulness condition or the control condition. For people who are in the mindfulness condition, that they will perform a mindfulness practice by listening to a self-guided meditation audio for 10 to 20 minutes. And for those who are in the control group, they will just be listening to neutral narrative that is the content is not about the study and is completely irrelevant. And that guides us to the procedure of the current study. Imagine you are a participant, and when you walked into the lab for your in-person visit, we'll first have you to fill out some questionnaire that is asking about your demographics and asking about your baseline mindfulness level, and something like, for example, your mood regulation and depressive symptoms as some potential moderator of the study. Later, I will have you to do a cognitive test that is called breath counting test, which you will be instructed to count your own breath, and it is a very important indicator for your state mindfulness level at the moment. After that, you will do the mindfulness practice or the neutral narrative activity based on your group assignment. And right after that, you will do the same test, the breath counting test again to find that if there will be any change in task accuracy. And that is telling us that will there be any change in your mindfulness level just right after the practice. Last but not least, we will have another test called the Stumper test that is telling us about how you process negative information. Let's start with the breath count test. So participants were instructed to count their own breath in a cycle of 9 breaths in total. They were looking at a complete blank screen, and for breath number 1 to 8 that they pressed one key every time that they exhale out to indicate that that's their breath. And for breath number 9 that they will press a different key to indicate that that is the end of one cycle and that they are aware of it. The test will last 9 minutes, very simple, that they were just looking at a complete blank screen. And then for every 1 to 2 minutes, there will be a question pop out on the screen that, oh, do you know that which count are you on at the moment? And what is your attention right now? As some prompt question. So let's go on to see some results. And as we can see on the graph that there are actually some increase in task accuracy in both groups. But if we look deeper into the within group analysis that we are only seeing a significant within group improvement in the mindfulness condition. For the control condition that we are, although we can see some increase, but it is actually non-significant. And if we look deeper into the between group analysis after the practice, we actually did not see any significant difference between both group, as you can see by the overlapping error bar. So what does it tell us about hypothesis one? In a very simple term, that we can see the increase can be due to some sort of practice effect, that imagine when you're doing a test for the second time, that you will be more familiar with the procedure, and then you will know the instruction better. So there is a chance that there is a tendency that regardless of everything, you will do better in the second test. However, that we actually see some increase, significant increase in within group analysis in the mindfulness condition. This may tell us that, oh, maybe these mindfulness practice can actually improve your mindfulness level, but it could be limited by the study design. For example, the duration of it, that you are only practicing that for 10 to 20 minutes, and you're only practicing that once in a single session design. Usually, if we talk about mindfulness, we look at the people that go to a mindful center to practice that for 6 to 8 weeks in the multi-session design. And it could be due to the self-guided format, because we are not having any licensed professional to do the mindfulness meditation section for them, but we are just having them to listen to self-guided audio. And these can all be the limitation of the current design. Second, let's go to the stumper test. So for participants, that they will be given a few seconds to memorize all 6 words on the screen for each trial, including the color of the test. And after a few seconds, then my whole screen will turn to either blue or red to tell them that which one is called relevant. So in this case, then my whole screen is in red. So that means that only the word that were in red is called relevant. The word that were in blue, or it was completely not in the list, will be called irrelevant. And their own task, their main task will be to determine that whether this single word is relevant or not. So in this case, that the word regretful will be irrelevant because it was actually from the blue list. So this is telling us about something called the negative inclusion effect, which is the difference in reaction time when determining that something is relevant or not. So we actually can see that there is a significant group difference in the reaction time by both group. In a very simple term, that, and that is all you need to know, that is for people who complete the control activity, that they took significantly longer to determine whether a word is relevant or not when it is a negative stimuli. And what does it tell us about hypothesis two? In a very simple term, that we can see, even though because of the group difference, even though for a very brief mindfulness practice, there may be a significant change in how individual process these negative information in determining and disengaging from it. And because these mindfulness practices are such low cost and so easy to integrate into your daily routine, that you can just find a meditation audio online on YouTube or in any source and practice them every time that before you go to bed. And it could be a good strategy for reducing these cognitive vulnerability to depressive symptoms. So finally, when we go back to the conceptual model of the current study, that we are seeing some sort of mixed result in hypothesis one, that we see significant results in within group analysis for the mindfulness condition, but we did not see any significant results in between group analysis, and that is telling us that maybe we need to study deeper into it, and it could be a good future research direction. And of course, for hypothesis two, that we are seeing a significant result, that is telling us that people who practice mindfulness actually will have a lower negative cognitive bias. Last but not least, let's go through the limitation of the current study. All the participants were recruited through SONA, and they are called non-clinical population, which means that we did not ask for their psychiatric diagnostic history, and no one were excluded out from the study based on that. So therefore, we cannot say that, oh, these mindfulness practice is effective as a treatment for those who actually have major depression, but we should say that it is a potential preventive measure for those who did not have depression and can practice in daily life. So, in a very simple conclusion term that I want to mention, depression is not only about your mood, but also about how you process negative information. And in the current study design that we find that these mindfulness practice could be a good preventive measure to lower your cognitive vulnerability to depression-related bias. Thank you very much.